It is Tuesday, February the 17th. This is the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. My name is Ann Becknell, and I'm going to call this meeting to order at 9 o'clock. If you would join me by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We definitely have a full quorum. Everybody on the Budget and Finance Committee is present today. I'm going to read the meeting procedures. The governing board and its committee conduct all their meetings in compliance with Arizona Planned Community Association open meeting laws per ARS 33-1804 and in concert with RCSCW bylaws, policies, and standing rules. Parliamentary procedures as outlined in the most recent edition of Robert's Rules of Order will also be followed in all meetings as appropriate, consistent with Bylaw 3.07, Procedures for Owner-Member Meetings, and Standing Rules number 2 and 3. Thank you. First order of business is the approval of minutes from our January 20th meeting. Has everyone had a chance to read those minutes? Does anyone have any questions or adjustments? Seeing none, we will approve those minutes as written and we'll move on. The next item up is the report, the financial review as of January year-to-date 2026 from Cliff Swan.
Thank you, Director Becknell. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to present the financial results for January year-to-date. Going to move quickly through this report so we can get on the budget, but certainly happy to answer any questions. So looking at the January year-to-date, if we look at the month of January compared to budget, we had a good month, finished 145,000 favorable, made up some ground in the golf revenue in terms of rounds. And just down the line, you could tell that members are enjoying the facilities. The facilities are open. We didn't get too many rainouts or frost delays or anything like that in the month, so it was a good month for us. Looking at the summary of expenses, right on budget at approximately $2,457,000. Overall, 143,000 favorable to budget with the 145 in additional revenue and 253 favorable to prior year. Year to date, we are sitting about 72,000. We're sitting right on budget, 16.5 million in revenue. Again, made up some significant ground in golf last month, and overall right on budget. On the expense side, we're about 1.1 million ahead in expenses. We still do have those landscape expenses coming in, just timing year over year. So but you'll see that 287,000 dissipate over time, but 433,000 wages and benefits, those open positions. We've done a lot of work to fill those positions now, so as you could tell by the favorable variance only being 30,000 in the month of January. But in terms of utilities, that was just a windfall for us this year with all of the mild weather and rain that we received. We weren't pumping water on the golf courses. So overall, we'll continue to obviously track these throughout the year, but it's in pretty good year to date. So overall, 1.2 million ahead of budget. You can see we're still operating at a cash outflow through January, but we'll see that go black in the month of February. And then compared to last year, we're 547,000 favorable year to date. So the two big changes are in wages and benefits. We are 351,000 favorable to prior year. That was all for budgeted wage increases and increasing insurance costs, healthcare costs, and benefits. And then on the landscape side, we talked about the 287,000. We'll see that dissipate over time. So I'll switch to the capital-related section of our income statement. The things to pay attention here to our asset preservation fees. We finished the month 4,000 favorable to budget, so right on budget for APFs for the month. And then down in the realized and unrealized gains and losses and investment income, finished investment income right on budget. And then if we look at the valuation changed, we finished approximately 300,000 favorable, which was good. We compare that to last year, and that valuation change, 299 versus 202. So last year we had a good year, but even better one this January in terms of our investment valuation. APFs 18,000 favorable, and then the investment income right on with last year. Now, year to date, sitting pretty good. I mean, we are a little behind in APS, which we knew. We made up a little bit of ground in January, and we'll see how things shake out as we finish the year. The real estate market, if interest rates continue to decrease and the economy stays good, we should be able to make that up in the APF fees. But we'll keep an eye on that, those home sale transactions. But on the investment income side, I mean, we're doing very well, 73,000 favorable to what we thought we would be in investment income. And then looking at the realized gains and unrealized valuation change, I mean, we're approximately 1.9 million or so ahead in our reserve fund account. So that's doing very well. And February is looking pretty good, shaping up pretty good right now, halfway through the month. So looking pretty good there. Compared to prior year, 1.3 million ahead. And that's just made up of about $1 million in reserve fund change. And then we have the reserve fund allocation. We allocated a little bit more this year, so that's budgeted for 31,000. APFs are right on par with last year. So overall, 2.867 million ahead of budget and 1.8 million ahead of prior year. Switching to the capital improvement section of the capital expenditures budget, we've got 5.148 million in the budget. We anticipate spending 4.831 million for an approximate savings of 317,000 to our budget capital expenditures. This is a listing of all of the capital projects. The shaded projects are complete. The yellow shaded items, we had a request from a board member to shade them different colors based on if they fell within a 10% margin of completion, of cost plus or minus. And so the yellow shaded items are within the 10%. The green shaded items were items that finished either 10%, at least 10% below budget or 10% above budget. Most of the items in here are below budget. There are some items above budget. If you have any questions on those items, let me know. So year-to-date capital related projects over 100,000. This is where we sit right now for those projects. Some of those are PO'd fully, some of them are PO'd partially, but only 3 of those projects are fully complete. And you can see what those look like on this chart, and then which vendors receive the projects themselves. So year to date for our allowances, we budgeted 420,000. We've spent approximately 98,000. Last week we presented at a governing board workshop that we had a well pump and a well that needed some repairs at Trail Ridge, and that came in at approximately 108,000. So that'll impact our reserves, which we have money in the allowance account for those well pumps. So you'll if you didn't see that last week, you can go on and see the presentation for that facts and findings that was presented at the workshop, and they'll be hopefully proving that Thursday. Okay, so this is a detail of all the other allowance items that we've completed this year. If you have any questions on those. So looking at the fully funded balance, we're right on. We're at 49% was completed last year. 49%. We budgeted 47%. We're right on budget. You'll see the projection on that when I do the budget presentation. Actually projected to come in at 40%. that completes my January year-to-date financial presentation. Questions?
Go ahead.
Is the well at Trail Ridge, is that why the course is wet?
What do you mean wet?
There's areas that are really muddy on the Trail Ridge
Oh.
as of yesterday.
Don, could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear it.
The question is, they're talking about the well at Trail Ridge, and I was just,
Trails. I said Trail Ridge. It's Desert Trails is where the
Yeah,
well
it's
pump is.
okay, then wouldn't apply.
Okay, so you're referring to Trail Ridge as being wet yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. I know we've had some irrigation problems over there, some stuck stations and that kind of stuff, so that's partly what you were seeing yesterday. It's wet today. It's wetter today with that half-inch of rain that we received overnight. But the well repair was at Desert Trails and not Trail Ridge. But I'll follow up on that at Trail Ridge. Thank you.
Any other questions? John?
Can we look at the slide where you throw the significant projects that were done, or that it just went by?
Yep.
So this is a really good page, and I would ask if we could add a variance column in there so you can eyeball just down the variance column really quickly, and you've got the budget of the PO and just be able to see what the difference is, and maybe even a total at the bottom.
Yeah, I can do that.
Just
Those would be detailed on the other report,
Right.
the next one, but.
But these are the big ones that impact us the most. It's
Yes.
a great slide.
Yeah, these are the big ones. And then I would not, I guess what I would say is we would show the completed projects,
Yeah.
what the variance is. Because even though the pin setters is currently PO'd less, we still have to go through the install. We still have to, make sure that that there are no surprises. So I would want to show
Still a good number to see what
it
we're at.
absolutely, yes.
So,
Yeah.
okay,
So
anyway.
I can label it as completed and anticipated savings, I guess, on those.
Just a thought. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Chris?
So, Cliff, how many full-time open positions do we have? That having open positions is a wonderful thing. I mean, not a wonderful thing, it's fine. We're expected, 400 employees, we're gonna have open positions. My concern is, do we have any full-time positions that have sat open for like 6 months? And if so, I think that's something worth reporting.
Okay. The answer to that is no. We do have positions in certain types of positions that are high turnover, so there's
Right.
always positions open, greenskeepers being one of them at our golf courses.
Right.
But we don't have any positions that are open long-term.
Okay,
Yeah.
the reason why I ask is, month after month, we see that we have open positions and there's a positive variance in expenses, and I don't see it as a problem unless we had a full-time position that sat open for 6 months, and then at some point, we'd have to manage that position differently or consider elimination. Second question, are we tracking the asset preservation fees that we're not collecting because of that new law that forced us to change our bylaws? And if I understand it correctly, if a home is turned over, basically inherited at little or no cost to someone, we used to be able to collect that asset preservation fee. We no longer do. And I think it's important to know that if that affects us, if that happens twice a year, then that's $10,000 we have to make up somewhere. But if it's 20 of the 28, I think we're 28 down, somewhere in that ballpark. If it's 20, all right, well, we better understand that that's going to happen, year and year, and accept it and not consider it a variance in the real estate market.
Yeah, I would say in general, not just APFs, but also owner member dues, people are finding ways to not pay them. So they're looking for avenues. Maybe they have an owner on the title that just really doesn't use the facility, so they decide to take that person off of their title so they don't have to pay owner member dues. Or they realize if they put their property in a trust that if it transfers within the trust, they don't have to pay an APF. Or you know, they can give their home to their grandchild and for zero consideration and avoid an APF fee. So in general, we're seeing more and more, talk with Riley about it, who's in our membership department, more and more people finding ways to avoid paying our fees. But to track and know which, because in the past, when we had a property that was inherited, most of those properties, if they were inherited by children that still had kids in school or they didn't want to live here, they still had a year to sell that home before we would refund their APF. So and most of the homes, that's what we did. So we'd have to know how many of those would have been that situation and how many of them wouldn't be. And we still have people that do sell them, and we still collect an APF on it. So it's not as easy as just looking at the transactions and being able to tell if we would have collected on an APF on this one or we wouldn't have. We really don't know at the end of the day. We know it's impacting us, but at the end of the day, we really don't know for sure because, again, a lot of those inherited properties, they paid an APF, but then they had a year to sell it, and they would get a refund for that APF. So, in a lot of those transactions, they did resell those homes and get a refund for their APFs. So we were refunding them anyway, or not collecting them at the end of the day. So it's just how many of those homes, we like the idea of having a year because it always incented people to sell them right away. What we're finding now, which is just as big a problem to us, is we're having more CC&R violations than things we have to follow up on because homes are being inherited, they're not being taken care of. And it was always nice to have that stick to move them along and get them moving. So, but we really don't know at the end of the day how many of those transactions, but it's definitely impacted. And if it's you know, it's 5,200 or 5,400 per transaction. So yeah, it's a big dollar amount, and we have no control over it. We can't do anything. There's literally nothing we can do about it.
So therefore, your budget process is to simply look at the previous year. I mean, we don't do any speculation, do we? We look at the previous year asset preservation count, and then for next year's budget, do we assume the same count?
So
we don't assume the market might get better or worse and vary.
Exactly.
the
So
number,
we
do
take a look. We look at like the 20-year average. The 20-year average tells us it's 1,200 per year. If we look at the short-term average, we're closer to probably 1,120, 1,150 per year. We budget 1,100, and that's what we model out as well. We feel good about that number still, because we've hit that number for the last few years. We're a little bit behind right now, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, I have one last question. I see a target on the fully funded balance of 47%. If I'm not mistaken, last month we had a target of 50%. That's a timing issue, or what?
That was wrong. If you go back to the budget presentation last year, we had it at 47%, and I was looking at that slide like, what the heck? It never changed because that was the slide from the prior year, and that never got updated. That 47%
All right.
on this slide. It's a good catch, though.
Thank you.
So just my comment was going to be on the APFs and the numbers. You know, we don't know what it's made up of, right? But what we have to do over a longer period of time is identify what the trends are, right? And which I think is what we're doing, right? 20 years it's 1,200, now last 5 it's 1,120, and you know, and you would believe that over this period of time that would stabilize, right? That it would stabilize, even though maybe it's going to be a little bit less, but it stabilizes. And that's the point that we would, without looking at, you know, I'm a big proponent of, no, we can't know every single thing, but we can know what the trends look like and apply those.
Say that, you know, we have no idea what state statutes are going to get changed as well. Who knows? We could in the future be looking at no APF because someone in Tucson brought up proposed a bill change to change APF fees, and maybe we don't get to collect them at all. We just, unfortunately, we can't control that. Now, we try to be on those, and we work with our various agencies to learn those bill changes. But when that happened, we knew it was going to impact us when they changed that rule and on that bill. But you know, there's things that are out of our control when we look at the budget, when we look at modeling, especially when we go further than 1 year out. So, which is why when we put the budget together, it's not just about that moment in time that we're looking at. We're really looking at, you know, trying to put a budget together that says, okay, if we swing a little bit lower on revenue, or we have some savings on expense, we know we know that we can weather that, and that'll still put our number together where we need it to be. So, you know, honing in and focusing in and chiseling on a budget is, we could do that all day, and but trust me, we don't want to put a budget together that way. We don't want to put a forecast together that way, because this is a big organization. We are not a small HOA that is where we pay an outside service to manage us, and then we pay them a certain amount, and then they go manage us. No, we have our own staff, 490 employees in the budget, 495 in the budget. We've got our own staff that we've got to handle. We've got, you know, all of the various services and everything that we do here at the association. Not one golf course that we have to worry about the bunkers and the greens, and we got 7 golf courses that we have to worry about that. We only have to fill 1 tee sheet. No, we got 7 tee sheets we got to fill. There's a lot of moving parts. That's why I try to put in the budget. And I know I'm like talking about the budget now, but really it's all about operations. That's why I put that data. I don't know if you got a chance to look at all the data that I put in there, and all the things that we do here, and all the interactions that we have with our members, and all the different services that we provide. There's a lot.
Thanks, Cliff.
Yeah.
Any additional questions? None? Do I have any questions from the audience? I see no one coming to the mic, and I see no questions online. So thank you, Cliff, for that presentation. We'll move on now to new business, 4.01 Capital Improvements Project.
In terms of the capital improvements, we're still waiting on, next month will be the update on ARC will be presented. We also will have an update on the furniture in the R.H. Johnson area, the common space area that we talked about renovating that came through our properties committee. So we'll be discussing that. Tomorrow by 11 a.m. we'll receive our bids on the Stardust project. So we'll have actual dollars bid from contractors. So we'll update the budget for that. And so in terms of, you know, capital improvement projects, I know that we had some presentations about the platform tennis as well at various meetings since our meeting here. But there's no updates in terms of dollars or project changes. So if there's any questions on the capital improvement budget right now, we have all the players here to answer any of those questions. But in terms of the projects themselves, there are no updates on them.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Okay, I see no questions from the committee. I appreciate that very much. I see no questions from the audience, and I see no questions online. So we'll move on with 4.02. And before we start Cliff's next presentation, I'm going to ask the committee to please hold all your questions to the end of, we basically have 2 sections here. One of them is the operating budget. And then we also have some master plan projected budgeting items. So we'll go through the general operating budget first. We'll take a quick break, ask a few questions, and then we'll go on with the master plan. Is that all right? All right, thanks. Go ahead, Cliff.
Okay, and then another update on the capital improvement budget before I start. This committee, by the end of next month, so by I think March 17th is the BNF meeting, right around there. By that meeting, this committee will give a recommendation on the capital improvement budget. And the recommendation will be to move forward in gross all the items that you feel as a committee, you'll make a recommendation to the board that we should include in the budget. Then there could potentially be, and from this committee, I think there will be, some items that are in the capital improvement budget that you would like to have further consideration by the board and have them vote on individually. Okay, so that's what you will have to recommend by the end of next month. So when you're looking at those capital improvement items, I would say we're gonna give an update at the next meeting of things like ARC, some of the big items, and I know those are kind of heavy hitters, but I would become prepared with any other questions you may have on any of the other items, and so that you can be prepared by the middle of March to make your recommendation on our second BNF on what items to include in the capital improvement budget, and then what items you think that the governing board should vote on individually. Okay, well, that said, let's talk about the budget. This is mainly operating budget focused, but we do some modeling at the end to show the full picture on our fully funded balance and our fully funded balance percent in our reserve fund. But as every budget we put together, we have our budget goals, and I'll summarize this by saying, keep the place looking nice. Make enhancements where you see opportunities to make enhancements, and keep it at the high standards that we have and our members expect. That's what the budget does. That's what we put together here, and position ourselves for the future. That's what this budget does. I like this wheel. It talks about all the different services that we provide here. All those different, a lot of these are just flat out business lines, to be honest with you. And we have two funds. We've got an operating fund and we've got a reserve fund. So therefore we have two budgets. We've got an operating budget and we have a capital improvement budget. Those are funded by those two funds. So a big part of what we do is we have a process that we put planning together. We've got a strategic plan, and we're assembling our master plan. So kind of the short range 1 to 3 year strategic plan, and then kind of above that we'll have our master plan, which our master plan is really helps develop our strategic plan when it comes to future projects. Okay, we have strategic to enhance our services and those types of things, but part of our strategy as well is to keep the place current. Okay, that's part of our strategy. So we need something to help drive that or help guide us on that, and that's what our long-range master plan does. So when we look at our membership, we've got approximately 28,000 members. Approximately 26,000 of those are owner members. And then we have approximately 1,200 associate members and approximately 1,000 tenants. Now, this was a snapshot of when I ran this report. So this changes because tenants come in and out at times. So that tenant number will jump here in the next couple of months because these are December numbers. We'll see that tenant number grow. So those services that we provide, so we've got all of our rec centers, right? We've got over 1.2 million check-ins. These are all FY 24-25 data numbers, so data that I pulled from last year, essentially. And we're exceeding all of these numbers right now for so far this year to date. But over 1.2 million check-ins at our various rec centers and libraries and facilities. We got 314,000 rounds of golf last year. We finished 314,000 rounds of golf at 7 golf courses. 318,000 bowling lineage, business bowling alley in the state of Arizona and probably the West, but definitely in the state of Arizona. We had 83 events where over 28,000 people attended last year. Events that we put on, some paid, some free. but just various things. And this is doubling this year because it's one of our strategic priorities to get out, get out in the community. So, but if we look at our organizational structure and our staff overview, 4 divisions. So we've got our men division, our rec division, golf division, and sports pavilion division. There's 34 departments in those 4 divisions. So in our administrative division, we've got our GM department, which is our general manager and his administrative assistant. And then we've got finance department, HR, facilities maintenance, information technology, membership and CCNRs, and our governing board, and finally, public relations. That's just our administrative division. In our rec division, we've got our 4 rec centers. So, and then we've also got our events and scheduling, our library, and then we have our landscape maintenance, which is our common areas and clubs. That's what our landscape maintenance is taken care of. Does not include the maintenance of the golf courses. And then our golf division, we got our operations and our maintenance for our 7 golf courses. And then finally, sports pavilion, we've got the bowling center, the billiards, the Blizzard Acres. That's all in there. So that's our 4 divisions. And then, so we have approximately 630,000 hours worked in this budget to operate and maintain all 4 divisions. 495 positions, 46 salaried positions, 156 hourly full-time positions, and 293 part-time positions. I'm just going to flip through these. They're on there for your reference. If you want to ask any questions, of course, we've got our direct reports to our general manager, and then we've got our management team direct reports here. And those divisions, I put an org chart in for each one of those divisions that I just detailed and departments. So you can take your time and go through those, but it's a large organization with a lot of people. So if we look at our FTE comparison in this budget compared to last year's budget, we've got 306 full-time equivalents in this budget. Last year we had 300 full-time equivalents. So a full-time equivalent, I'm just going to explain what that is, but sometimes that's hard. It's not a full-time employee. It's an equivalent to a full-time employee. So basically you take all of the hours, 630,000, divided by 2080, and that gives you your full-time equivalents. So that's important, especially for an organization like us, because we have such a large hourly staff here between full-time and part-time. It's 80% of our staff, so maybe more. Anyway, so if we look at the FTE details, so this is divisionally where these changes are, but you really got to dig in to the FTE details to really see where the changes are. So in the administrative division, we're proposing, and this is one of our strategic priorities. It's to market and brand our community, and a position that we've looked at and determined that we needed, which is an actual full-time position in this budget that we're adding this year, or proposing to add this year, is a content strategist. So we have. We're updating our website, getting on the new portal as well. Everything is geared electronically and paperless, and we have to advertise and market ourselves that way. So to do that, we need to beef up the staff in our PR department, and the PR department is requesting a content strategist. And this person will be responsible for adding content to our website and our social media. So videos, one-on-ones, how-tos. There'll also be all the changes we've got with the new portal. We're going to have to train our members. We're going to have to train our staff. There's a lot of things that need to happen from a technology perspective and a PR perspective. And this will help us bolster that department to be able to help us transition and do those things. So that's something that we put in this budget. And Katie's here, and she could talk about it a little bit at the end if there's any questions on that position. But that's an addition to that division. And in the rec division, we've got 3 full-time equivalents increase. We decreased 1 in our landscape maintenance division. We have a position that we're not going to fill. It's a spray tech position, and basically this person spent most of their time at all the different facilities spraying and fertilizing all of the various facilities. And Todd came to me and Stephen and said, hey, I think this is one position that I think we can outsource for a savings to the association. We still have a landscape maintenance staff. We can't outsource it all. It just doesn't make sense. We've got too many things like lawn bowling greens and softball fields and things like that we take care of. But in this position, it's something that we could outsource for a savings to the organization. So it'll create an overall $6,000 savings in our wages and benefits, but also in terms of equipment and chemicals, that's included in the price too. So there'll be a savings there as well, operational savings with that position. And then finally, in our 3 rec centers, R.H. Johnson, Beardsley, and Palm, we've added facilities assistants and monitors, essentially. We've increased our hours at some of our facilities. We've added monitors at various facilities as well, just to help bolster the time that we're open and provide better service, especially from the facilities assistants perspective. These are people that do setups and teardowns of our events or whatever's going on at the rec centers. They also serve as janitors and maintenance staff. So it really is, we've added some positions. They were all part-time, but it really is just the hours themselves, even adding hours to just make sure we have coverage and make sure that we're keeping the facilities looking nice. And then on the sports pavilion side, we had 2 FTEs. One was a full-time position. These were actually added this year because of the Lizard Acres remodel and what we found there. And essentially, we needed more staff to run it efficiently, to have proper controls in place as well when it comes to bartenders and making sure that we're doing things the right way. And then in terms of maintenance and cleaning. So we have 1 FTE that overall that we've added, which essentially is 1 new position and just additional hours to make sure we have coverage in the sports pavilion because we're open longer. Now that's making its return in terms of sales, and you'll see what we've budgeted additional sales in the sports pavilion for that extra labor. And then finally in the bowling center, this year we added we had a part-time bowling league coordinator. We've always had a part-time bowling league coordinator. This year, because of the way we've structured the bowling center and the additional leagues and in-house leagues that we brought in, we made that a full-time position. So, and that's to cover all the additional work and all the additional revenue that's generating and service for our bowling center. So when we look at last year's budget and we look at this year's budget, those are the changes in terms of the 300 FTEs and the 306 FTEs. I think we're going to hold them to the end. I'm sorry. Sure. Yeah, Mike.
You've got a number of part-time positions and you're calling them 1 FTE. How does the part-time get to the full-time equivalent?
The part-time, it's the additional hours that's creating the FTE calculation. So it's increasing the FTE. So just think of FTE as hours. So if you have 3 part-time people that double their hours, that's going to be close to 1 FTE additional increase. Even though you didn't hire anybody new, you just increased their hours.
Oh, okay, so you're increasing hours of existing also. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so when we look at historically, to give some perspective on full-time equivalents, we always put this chart in, or graph in, but I wanted to add the chart just so you can have some insights into how we've changed every year. And, when you think about full-time equivalents, you say, well, that's the amount of people that you need, right? And I say, well, yeah, that's that amount of people that we need for now. We could need less, we could need more. That's what we need. That's what we're proposing to do what we want to do in this budget. So you can see that changes over time. I mean, we were budgeting 322 in 2021. We're at 306. We went down to 291 during COVID because we knew we were struggling to hire people. We knew that in the budget, it just wasn't doable. So we really pulled it back. We really evolved there and changed. And we're evolving too, but things have happened during this period of time. We've added a CCNR department. We've added additional staff in our IT department. We've added additional staff in our membership department. There's a lot of changes that have happened over time with our structure and how many employees we have and where we have them and what they're doing. So this gives some perspective into that to show, we do change every year, but we're still doing pretty good in terms of FTEs for the organization that we're running. And I mean, we went on some tours and we went to the Victory at Verado, the retirement community there, and looked at that community. And they have one golf course. They have 150 people for one golf course, operations and maintenance. 150. Yeah. So now their conditions would be better. Service might be a little bit better, but that's what they have. Okay, so this year, so I put this slide in here because I wanted to show that, where we sat in terms of the market. One of the strategic priorities this year was for the operations team to complete a compensation study. This compensation study was even more intense and more detailed than what we've done in the past. We partner with two organizations, Employers Councils, and Employers Council has partnered with an organization called PayFactors. And basically, PayFactors is a tool that you can use to real-time price out positions and do compensation studies within that system itself. And it's basically a conglomerate of a bunch of different organizations throughout the country, but you can slice and dice it to Arizona or go regional to certain states. So in most cases, we were able to test our wages in Arizona, but in the cases that we weren't, we expanded it to the Western region. However, we excluded California, and the Western regions included states like Montana and Washington and Nevada, states like that, New Mexico. But essentially, when part of the budget last year was to address some of the positions that we had that were under market. And we're able to do that. And when we completed that study, we reran how we stacked up. And previously, we were 12% below the average. And after this year and after the study and after the merit increases and the position changes and everything that we did within the budget, we ended up at 8% below the average. We feel good about that number. We don't want to lag the market, but we also don't want to set the market. That doesn't work for us for this type of organization. But being 8% below the average with our benefits package, we feel good about that number. So that's kind of where we sit right now. All right, now in this budget, so with those FTEs and the things we talked about, overall, there's a 3.6% increase in this budget for wages, payroll taxes, and benefits. So when we look at the budget itself, if we distribute that amount, we're automatically going to have an increase just basically because of year over year. Because our year is a fiscal year, we have a wage increase for the last 6 months of the prior year. For the first 6 months of the prior year that we didn't have in the first 6 months of the previous year. So I know it could get confusing, but at the end of the day, we automatically get an increase just in wages and benefits just because of that. And then with the merit increase, we put a 3%. We allocated 3%. So for merit increases. So that means that when we do our evaluations at the end of the year, part of our evaluation process is our merit increase process. If you rate at the top, you get a 3%. If you rate in the middle, you get less than a 3%. If you rate below that, you probably don't get anything. So so that's how we do our merit increases. But we put the 3% increase in the budget to address all of that. Okay, so that's how we distribute that out. We also put a 50-cent increase, which is approximately 3% anyway, for our minimum wage increase for our minimum wage employees. So any employee who is in a minimum wage pay scale, they'll get that increase mandated by the state. So that's allocated in here. And then the additional FTEs is also driving the increase. So the additional hours for those part-time staff, and then those two, the new position, the content strategist position, that's the allocation, $209,000 for those 6 additional FTEs in the budget. And then finally, workers' comp. We got a workers' comp renewal presentation coming up. We actually had our trend is staying on the right track, and so we've in this actual fiscal year, we're actually going to see a decrease in our workers' comp insurance. But I put a 7% increase. I put an increase in because I have to allocate workers' comp expense to payroll. So it's automatically going to go up because if our payroll goes up, we have those positions filled that might be opened this year but not be open next year. So that's going to increase a little bit. But overall, workers' comp's looking good. But that $19,000 is to cover that. And then finally, on the health insurance side, we had our health insurance presentation, 7% increase there. So that's what we budgeted in our health insurance expense. All right, so overall, so that's our wages and benefits, obviously our largest item at 60% of our budget. So we've got these other operating expenses that impact our budget. And so let's talk about those. But overall, 3% increase overall with wages and with the other operating expenses. But if we look just at the other operating expenses that are non-payroll related, there's a 2% increase in the budget. And we'll go down through those. Now there's things that happen this year that don't happen next year. There's things that happen next year that didn't happen this year in this budget. So I can't, when we put the budget together, we look at all of those. We look at that, it's called the modified method, right? So you look at your expenses from the prior year and take out the items that you're not going to have next year, and add the items that you know are. But so when we look at the repairs and maintenance category, we have $110,000 increase in our repairs and maintenance for outside services. So quick, there's an attachment on this file, and I don't know if you had an opportunity to go down through it, but it's all the expense line items per category, and then within that, there's a second page that talks about the variances within those items. I also put it in this presentation, but you can always refer back to that. But there's $110,000 in outside services. That spray tech we talked about earlier from landscape, that's $44,000. Okay, so that's an increase there, but a decrease in payroll, and a $6,000 savings. And then we had $75,000 increase. We've got in our patios and pro shops during the day, during busy season. We don't have janitors that take care of those. We have janitors that come in the evening and clean everything up, and then they go out to the restrooms on the course as well in the evenings and clean everything up. All of the other cleaning that takes place is done by the staff, starters, the pro shop supervisors during the day when it's busy. And we've received numerous complaints over the years, not only from members about the conditions of the patios and the bathrooms during the day, but also from staff because they're so swamped and so busy that they can't do anything about the complaints because they can't leave where they're working. And we just flat out, we need to do something to change that and provide a better experience to our members. Now, we talked about doing it internally and having a staff that goes to each golf course during this period of time, during the heat of the day, middle of the day, have enough staff and vehicles to drive around and complete this task during the middle of the day, during the busy season when it's so busy. And in terms of risk, of the additional risk associated with that, with people driving around, the additional staff that it would take, because we'd have to blitzkrieg it. So we couldn't just hire a couple of people. I mean, we'd have to hire a couple of people per golf course to do that. And then there's a seasonality of it. And so how do we keep that position filled? You know, when you tell them, you know, sorry, you know, you get to be a janitor for 6 months. You know, it's not an easy position to fill. So and it's not cheap. So we have an outside company that performs janitorial services for us, and we asked a quote from them, and for approximately for approximately $75,000, they could do it for us. Covers all the chemicals, covers all the staff, covers all the vehicles, covers everything that needs to happen for them to do that in that 2-hour window at all of our golf courses. So in line with our strategic priority of providing a better experience on our patios and at our golf courses, we put this in the budget to do that. So that's a $75,000 increase in the budget for those additional services. All right, so we have a $5,000 reduction in equipment. So with the new pin setters, we anticipate saving that maintenance on those pin setters. We think it'll be at least that, but we put a $5,000 savings in for that. And there's also a $42,000 reduction in our rolling stock repairs. So anything that has wheels, we've spent some really good resources over the years, and even in this budget have budgeted for new equipment, and that saves us in maintenance, and we're doing well there. So we feel like we could save $42,000 in this budget for that. We have a $7,000 reduction. There's a wall painting project that was in this year, and that's offsetting some additional increases, but overall in maintenance. But we feel like we could save $7,000 in maintenance and repairs and buildings for that. There's a $98,000 increase for parking lots. So we've got seal and stripes that have to happen. There's 2 lots here at R.H. Johnson, and then Stardust, Pebblebrook, Deer Valley, and Desert Trails. They all have to be sealed and restriped. So that's in this budget. That's not a capital item. That's a maintenance item, and that's in our operating budget for next year. We have a $2,500 reduction in the billiards. We'll save $10,000 because of all the remodeling costs that we had this year in the sports pavilion in general. But we have a $7,500 increase because we want to refelt 10 pool tables. And those pool tables, we have approximately 30 pool tables, and we've neglected refelting those. We've been on a 5-year, every 5 years refelting them, and they really need to get moved up. They really should be done for the amount of play that they're getting. They get 2,500 to 3,000 check-ins a month in that billiards room. I know you walk by there sometimes and it looks empty. You're like, where's all the people? I'm telling you, they use that facility. It is used. And anyway, so we really need to provide that amenity properly. And we want to really get after 10 of those pool tables, get them done and get them refelted. In our landscape maintenance category, we have a $25,000 increase for seed. We anticipate a 5% increase in seed. We put an increase in last year, and the seed came in flat. So we'll see what happens next year, but we feel like with it coming in flat this year, we're probably going to get an increase next year. So we'll see what happens with the seed. we have a $10,000 increase. So we do the palm trees every other year with in the medians. We partner with Maricopa County, and we do them every other year. Next year's our year, so we're going to have an increase in our tree maintenance to cover those medians, those palm trees in the medians. In the equipment category, we had a $47,000 increase in overall equipment, and that's made up of a $33,000 increase. We're replacing 49 cents of golf club rentals. So we rent golf clubs at our 7 golf courses, and we haven't replaced those in, how old are they? 12 years. It's time, and so we put that in the budget to replace those, and we'll get use out of the old ones. We'll use them in our green team program and things like that, but we really need to step those up. It's been a while. And then we have a $20,000 increase. We're going to a synthetic bowling pin, and that'll get us an extra 1 to 2 years useful life out of those bowling pins. So we're going to start that program in July, and so we need the funds available to do that, purchase new bowling pins, because it's time to do the bowling pins. In taxes, license, and insurance category, we have a $52,000 increase for our property and casualty insurance rates. We're in the process of renewal on that. We'll have a presentation on that to the board, to the committee. So we'll see how that shakes out. But currently in the budget right now, I put a 7% increase in for property and casualty insurance. So our next category is interest and financial expense. All right, in this budget, there's a $300,000 reduction for credit card fees. I know that makes some people's hearts feel warm on this committee because they've wanted it for a long time. And in the community. So, but we budget for it. We have the technology to do it. We've got the processes that'll work with our portal upgrade that we're going to have here in late spring this year. We'll have the ability to do that. They've also enhanced the POS stations and the terminals to be able to make sure that, because part of the process of collecting a processing fee is that the customer has to know they're paying for a processing fee. So we have that technology built. The beautiful thing too is we can select the area that we want to do it in. We have this allocated for our membership department because of the size of the transactions in there and the amount of fees that we pay. So we pay approximately $600,000 a year in credit card fees. $300,000 of that comes from our membership department. So all of the membership dues and everything that's collected at the credit card at the POS is there, all the dues that are paid online by a credit card, and then all the golf cart memberships that are renewed there also. So with this new technology, we have the ability, and we also have the ability to allow for members to pay via ACH if they're paying online. We also have the ability for members to charge their member credit account via ACH online. So we have avenues for people to avoid using a credit card, but we also still will allow them to use a credit card. It's just the miles that they get out of their credit card are going to be offset by the fee that they get charged. And the beautiful thing about this as well is that the Elavon, the processing company that we use, they process the transaction and they bill us the net. So they'll collect the fee in the transaction and offset the fee that we would pay. So it'll all happen in the back end, and then we'll have a net bill at the end of the day. So we'll have a little bit of fees on there. There'll still be additional processing fees because we do get charged for ACHs. There's going to be some operating cost as well because we'll have a lot more checks to deposit and scan and chase when they bounce, when somebody forgets to, move the money into their banking account, or, there's going to be some additional expenses, we know, but at the end of the day, we feel like in this budget, it'll be a $300,000 reduction in the budget. And the fees we collected actually in the membership department, the fees that we charge in the membership is $350,000. So we offset 300 of that. I know it'll be popular with some people and some people won't be. I think it'll be popular with most people. And then we're not proposing to do it in golf or any of our other POSs at this time. The surrounding golf communities currently aren't charging a processing fee. So in terms of outside golf, we have to be conscious of that. We spent a lot of time on this subject with the golf committee a couple of years ago, and we actually increased our golf rates to cover the credit card fees back then. So we put an additional rate increase in for the members because the committee said, don't charge us, we'll pay it in the rates. So we're not going to do that at golf at this time or any other POS, just in the membership department. So all transactions in the membership department. Okay, and now moving on to the legal and professional category. One of our strategic priorities is to have a bigger presence when it comes to marketing our community and talking about all of the beautiful things that we have here, all the services that we provide, attracting owner members and the like. So also internally, there's some things we need to do. Our golf members, our members that golf are declining. So we used to be 8,000. Now it's 7,700 unique members that golf in the community. So we've got to get after that because we have 7 golf courses. They're not going anywhere. You can't, I mean, they're deeded. They're golf courses, okay? So they provide a significant chunk of our budget in terms of revenue. So we're here for our members, and one of the things that we're looking at, and one of our strategic priorities, is not only marketing our community, but how do we get more members in our community to golf? And I would much rather have a person in the community who golfs at a discounted rate multiple times a year than have to go get someone outside the community to come in and golf. So that's what we're focused on, and we're working on that. And that's in this budget. So we have 40,000 with maybe a stay and play type option for people, that type of thing in the community. So we're looking at different options, but we're budgeting some additional funds in there for that strategic priority. And the operating expenses, this is a category, it's called operating expenses. No, it's not as bad as miscellaneous, but there are some items in here. So I want to talk about what that is. So we have there are security systems that we have at 13 locations. They're essentially they still operate on a landline that's very inefficient, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work for us. There's 13 locations. We've upgraded. I think we upgraded 8 or 10 of them this year, and we got 13 more locations to take care of. That's about $18,000 for those to upgrade those panels, so we can operate in a wireless environment or in an environment where we can cloud environment. So $18,000 for that. We've got a $22,000 increase in service contracts. There's some. We have. I don't know the total of them. I can report it at the next meeting, but we've got quite a few service contracts, and this is really our software services that we use. So all the SaaS products that we use, from scheduling software to our ticketing software to our accounting software to our POS software, all that. So we put a 4% increase in that line item, which is driving that increase of $22,000 in our service contracts. $12,000 increase in printing expenses. So the Rec Center News is going from a vehicle delivered platform to the U.S. Mail. I believe U.S. Mail. U.S. Mail. So we're going to have to deliver our Rec News in the U.S. Mail. We're going to continue that. So we know that there's a large. We looked at this. We're like, well, do people still read the paper? Well, they do. In Sun City West, they really do. It's a massive wave opportunity for us to communicate with the community. That's why we use our Rec. That's why we put our Rec Center News in it. And unfortunately, the costs to deliver that are going to go up because of the delivery system. They're going to be using the mail system. And But that's going to be a $12,000 increase. We did look at it and go, boy, do we really need, because I don't read them. I mean, I read it because somebody puts it on my desk, but I don't read the paper personally, but a lot of people in our community do. It's an important way for us, avenue for us to communicate with people. So we built that into this budget because we know it's coming. We have a $9,000 increase in our PR department. We use that PR department. It's about $8-9 grand to run an election, or to run a recall, or to do anything like that. So we're just putting an additional amount in there to make sure if we have to have an additional election next year that those funds are in the budget. Okay, now down the employee-related category. One of our strategic priorities is for our staff and team to for training, not only training in their jobs and in their professional areas, it's also leadership training and just safety training and all the different training, all the different trainings that happen in a year. So 20,000 of that we're using in this budget is we've got leadership training in there. We have 17,000 for various conferences and things like that. So we got from the library side, we got the AZLA, the ALA, from the membership and general manager and finance side, we got CAI, which is our a group we belong to for community associations. And then on the HR side, we got SHRM. That's HR professional category. We've also got 5,000 in the budget for additional liquor license training. So we're actually going to try and do that on site because we have so many now. People that handle every time you pour a beer, every time you sell a hot dog, all that. We got to have licensing for all that, and all our employees are handling food, handling liquor. So that's built in this budget, $38,000 increase in that category. Now we talk about all these different budget line items, and we have I of course call out all of the increases and decreases, but overall when we operate our organization from an operations perspective, also from just our values that we have here, it's to do things in a prudent and efficient manner. And attached to this presentation is a cost. It's called cost savings measures. I think there's about 40 or 42 items called out in there. We're still compiling that list, so that's going to grow. Just I couldn't get them all back from the managers by the time I had this presentation, so we'll continue. That list will continue to evolve, but all the things that we do here, we look at from a cost savings perspective. How can we save money? There's also partnerships and things that we have with outside organizations, Friends of the Library, Prides, all of our volunteers that we have here that help volunteer with our events and things that we do around the community. All of those types of things. Those are all part of our cost management highlights. And there's other things that we do from a revenue perspective, taking our idle operating cash, for example, in that operating fund and investing that in short-term treasuries that generate $150,000 a year in interest income from that idle cash. So all those types of things that we do. Encourage you to go through that list, spend some time on it. It's not just operating savings. It's also additional services and just better service for, no more money. It doesn't cost any more to do some of those things. We include those in there, as well as capital improvement saves. We look at, for example, our reserve study and how we assess all those assets, the processes that we go through, the committees, the properties committee, the BNF committee, all the things that we do to look at these assets and put lives on them and see if we can extend them and things like that. So just tons of opportunities that are out there that we do on a daily basis that sometimes, sometimes we should pat ourselves on the back that we do these things and get it out in the community. We don't do as good of a job as we should, so we like to include those in the budget. So please take some time to go through that list, because it's eye-opening when you start looking at some of those things that what the savings and efficiencies are there. Okay, so when we talk about the operating expenses, that overall 3%, 2% operating, and 3.6% in wages and benefits, we got to look at the revenue structure and how we can generate the income to cover that. Because remember, at the same time, we're allocating a portion of our dues to go into our reserve account. And that's part of what we should do and what we do to budget and keep our reserve fund healthy. As I was talking, I noticed that this says 2025 dues increases on it. It should say 2026, so sorry I didn't update that column on the slide, but pretty sure Chris would have saw that. But we take a look at our surrounding communities and dues and APF. So in this budget, we proposed a $22 increase to go from $598 to $620. It's a 3.7% increase. We're proposing a $5,600 in an APF fee, so going from $5,400 to $5,600. And if we compare that, we'd like to do just a quick comparison. I've also added rooftop numbers this year, so you can see how many rooftops there are in each one of these communities, just to give some more perspective. But overall, pretty much fall in line with what other communities are doing. Of course, when you compare our dues to the dues of the other communities, you have to, I take 1.7. You have to basically take our number and multiply it times 1.7 if you want to get a per rooftop. And it's 1.7 because we have on average 1.7 people per household. So you can see how we compare at approximately, whatever that number is, 620. So 1240 times 1.7. You can see how we compare to these other communities and the dues that they're paying, the APFs you're paying. I will say the older the community, the larger the APF. So you look at like Pebble Creek, they set their APF at their dues, their annual dues. Well, they do that because they're still selling homes. The builder still owns it, so they're probably comping that in their closing costs just to get houses sold. But we also went there. That was one of the communities like Victory, and I asked them about their reserve fund, and yeah.
You said, what's that?
I asked them about their reserve fund.
And they said, what's that?
Yeah, well, pretty much, yeah. Yeah, so, the reserve fund there, the reserve fund that we also went to Sun City Festival, asked about the reserve fund there. They're still 10 years out from turning over there. But yeah, they don't have much of a reserve fund. So, but that's how we compare to other communities in this budget. So let's talk about member dues. So overall, we're going to drive an additional $274,000, going from $598 to $620. It's a $22 increase proposed in the budget. The estimated reserve fund at 8% will generate approximately $1.3 million from our dues will get allocated to our reserve fund account in this budget. So looking at from the golf side, as I said earlier, golf drives a lot of revenue for us. And so we look at golf, and we're going to budget 320,000 rounds. We're on pace for that this year through January. We're a little ahead of that, actually. But, can't control the weather, so there's some uncertainty there. But 320,000 rounds of golf. We finished last year at 314. We're on pace for 320 this year. Feel good about 320. We hit 320 at least 320 for the past 4 years. So we feel good about the round number. So we're proposing to increase the golf rate during peak season only, so November through April, for non-members, $3 per round. And then in terms of members for that same period, we're proposing a $1 increase for round or per rate on the greens fee. So that'll generate an additional 225,000, and then just increased sales in golf carts has increased revenue in the modeling, in the 606 modeling that I have. It's going to increase year over year by 55,000 in our golf carts themselves. So 280,000 overall for golf. In our bowling division, our sports pavilion division, the bowling lineage itself is going to increase because this year we have closure this year in April. At some point in April, we're going to close. We're not sure how we're going to close. We're not sure if we're going to be able to keep partially open. We're not sure exactly what that looks like, but we know we're going to have an impact to revenue. We think that impact is going to be approximately 21,000. We won't have that next year, so that increased line is just due to no closures. Will be 21,000, and then we charge a discounted amount for our Sunday. I forget which tournament we run on Sundays, but we're going to increase that 50 cents per line, and we anticipate that driving an additional 15,000 in revenue just for those Sunday special. And then on the food and beverage side for Lizard Acres and overall sports pavilion, we anticipate a 10% increase in sales, which after cost of sales will be a $36,000 increase just in sales. And then we're also implementing a 50-cent increase just in bowling, and not just in the sports pavilion, not golf, not any of these other places, but just in the sports pavilion because of the Lizard Acres pub and the renovations that were done and the experience that we're providing in there. In addition, it's not just the facility itself, but we put bands in there. We don't charge a cover to our members for those bands. We're proposing a 50-cent increase to cover those additional costs and additional labor. So overall, 69,000 in increased revenue from food and beverage in the sports pavilion, this budget. Switching to APFs and interest income, we talked about that idle cash sitting in the operating account. We're budgeted for 157,000 this year. I anticipate having less cash, and I anticipate rates going down. So 129,000 in interest income on our operating cash for next year, and APF fees are budgeted at 6,160,000, and that's increasing from 5,400 to 5,600, assuming 1,100 transactions, which is our going rate. So overall, when we look at the operating budget summary, we look at it in terms of what's our cash flow to our reserve fund. So we take our operating revenue in the budget at 31 million, operating costs 31. We allocate 1,296,000 from our dues. We have our APF fees of 6,160,000. We anticipate income from our reserve. We budget our interest and dividends income. We don't budget our valuation change. We model our valuation change, but we don't budget our valuation change. So overall, inflow of 8,336,000 is what we're budgeting in this budget. So when we look at the inflows of 8,336,000, our anticipated outflows, so this is what we have in the capital improvement budget right now. I will say that ARC is not in that number because ARC is going to be funded through operating cash if the project gets approved. We're projecting 11,266,000 in outflows. So we're going to have a draw on our reserve fund at the end of next year in this budget at approximately 2.9 million. Okay. And then looking at the projected reserve fund inflows and outflows here, this is where you can see the increase and decrease to the reserve fund over the next 5 years of what's anticipated. So when we look at the impact to the fully funded balance, so how does our reserve fund compared to what our fully funded balance is. So just a reminder, our fully funded balance is the used portion of our assets, the cost of our assets. So the cost of our assets are approximately, let's say approximately 120 million. Okay? The used up portion of that 120 million by the end of next year is going to be 68 million, 68.5 million. We anticipate our reserve fund being 31,628,000. Our anticipated fully funded balance percentage is 46%. So policy says that it has to be at least 40%. But we have to remember that our reserve fund funds not only the repair and replacement items in the reserve study, it also funds enhancements and new capital. So new things that get added to the reserve fund, to the reserve study, are included in that. Even new things that don't get added to the reserve study, things like planning dollars, master plan money, all of those things. The reserve fund funds all of our capital improvement projects for policy. Okay, so yes, we have to be at 40%, but we also have to be able to fund enhancements and new things to the community. So in this budget, we anticipate 46% being our fully funded balance percentage. That's how we determine how healthy we are. So that concludes the portion of the budget. There's the next slides are going to talk about funding the master plan. We're going through a master plan right now, and we'll talk about that. But before we do that, I want to answer any questions that might be on the presentation.
So I'm sure that I saw people making copious notes as Cliff was doing his presentation. And in the interest of time, and we only have about 40 minutes or so left to this meeting being able to end at a reasonable 2-hour session, I would like to see if I get consensus from the committee that we would aggregate our questions we might have from the presentation that we had from Cliff, and we would submit them to Cliff and let Cliff review them and respond to us in bulk with those questions. Is there a consensus that that's acceptable by the committee? So I'm suggesting that you would email Cliff. Cliff would aggregate those questions together and then email the responses back to everyone at one time.
At the committee, yeah.
We could present,
Yeah,
but,
we'll present them too.
but
what
while
they
they're
were.
while it's still fresh in their minds, we could respond to them in the next week or so if that's acceptable. If the committee agrees that that's acceptable, again, in the interest of time, I have a few questions from people that are online. I think those we want to probably answer those. They'd be simple enough to answer. But is there anybody have a consensus or disagree one way or the other?
I'm fine with that. I think some of my questions were simple clarification. Other ones were point of interest. I think our audience would be interested. So as long as we answer them publicly,
And we'll read them out.
then I'm fine with that.
That's okay. So we will aggregate them and we'll read them out at the next meeting. Anybody else have any comments or questions about that? Comments or questions? Okay, seeing that I have none at the committee, we're all in consensus that we're going to aggregate those. You can respond to them and then we'll read them out at the next meeting for the benefit of all the viewers. Do I have any audience questions or issues? I see no one. Oh, I see someone walking to the podium.
Good morning, Jim Scott, 404675. Quick questions. In regards to the spray tech, does that include weed abatement that they'll be taking over? As he comes down. 3 monitors for Palm Ridge. That project, that monitor station is really morphed into something. I guess I'm kind of stumped on why do we have one plan of action with Palm Ridge and it's kind of morphed into something more than we thought it would, and then we're not doing anything with Sands, or are we doing something with Sands? And then I actually wanted to start with a tip of the hat. You're a very knowledgeable person, Cliff. I really appreciate your information. And then the billiard tables. That billiard room they've done an amazing job with it. And with the new lights coming in, I mean, that area, that billiard hall really looks fantastic. I'm not convinced that 10 tables are enough to really just finish the project. Is that being looked at? Because there's been some feedback in the community about those tabletops.
Okay. Let me talk about the monitors first. So the monitors, we added staff. Don't think of those as 3 full-time employees. We have to distribute the hours. So it's not just for pickleball, but it's also just for the facility in general. The result of that is an additional 1 FTE. So is an additional 2,000 hours to the budget. So don't think about that as, just think about that just as in general. So in general, if you look at the other facilities I put in there, I forget the other 2, I think it was Beardsley and I forget the other, or it's Johnson.
Yeah.
There's additional hours in there as well. So those get distributed amongst a bunch of people, but they generate an additional FTE or whatever.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And in terms of the billiards tables, last year we did, I believe it was 5 we did last year. Gary's and so we doubled that up for this year. We can see how the year goes as well and see how we're doing on savings. If we have enough repairs and maintenance savings, we can allocate that to more tables. But we're just trying to get on a rotation instead of every 5 years. We're trying to get on an every 3-year rotation for the tables.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah, I
that's-
agree. They're
yeah.
they're getting heavy usage.
Yeah, they're just, it's great.
Yeah.
I used to walk past that building and go, where is it? Why do we have this huge billiards room? But then we started tracking the check-ins and I'm like, holy crap. Yeah, they
it's
are in
being
there.
used.
So anyway,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
And Todd?
So your question about weed abatement, that is going to be the primary job, and that includes R.H. Johnson, Stardust Boulevard, Deer Valley, the Javelina Trail, walking track out there, and then the 4 rec centers. Now, our guys will still do small weed control, but that's pre-emergent applications twice a year, and then also pre-treatment if they need to come out, or post-treatment if they need to come out and take care of any weeds. And then, as Cliff mentioned, there's going to be a real big savings on that, not only in staffing, but they provide the chemicals, so there's a savings on that. And then the equipment, they have their own spray rig and cart. So there could be a point where we could eliminate that completely off the reserve study if this works out, which I don't see why it wouldn't. So it's a win-win for everybody on this one. Thank you.
Can we squeeze in the Grandview or the Grand R.H. Johnson medians?
Yeah, that actually that's a responsibility of the county, and they do that. They do the pre-emergent on the medians every year. So, but I can work with them and see what their plan is. But that's completely their responsibility. The median on R.H. Johnson.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Scott. So I do have 3 questions, and I'll just rattle them off and you can respond. So these are all 3 from Gary Bach, 135435. Did the compensation study include management?
Yes.
Yes, it did. What is meant by golf courses are deeded?
So there's deed restrictions for the homes on the golf courses. And they basically state that it has to be they live on a golf course. Yeah. So we can't develop it and put homes on it. So there's restrictions there as to how you can renovate those.
how we can manage the real estate.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, what we can do with that property. There are restrictions, deed restrictions on the properties on that golf course.
All right. And then the last one from Gary was, will all the members get the rec center news mailed to them automatically, or do they need to sign up for delivery? If automatic, will it be one per household or one per member?
Katie's going to come up and answer that.
Katie's going to answer that. Thank you, Mr. Bach, for your questions.
Hi, thank you. It'll be similar to what's happening now. Right now, it's handled through the independent, but, and they do direct mail through the post office, so it'll continue through the post office. They do every door, so it's just mass delivered to every household on the USPS code. Part of the cost, though, is we're looking to make it more magazine style, glossy, rather than just traditional newspaper style to help increase the readership. It is very highly read, but we do want to modernize it, so that's part of the cost.
So one per household.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, I see no other questions online, no other questions from our members that are in attendance. So we'll go up to part 2, where we start talking about the master plan study. And again, I'd ask the members to hold up your questions. We want to try to complete this in about 30 minutes for a variety of reasons, but Cliff, if you want to go ahead and start with the master plan, that'd be great.
Okay, this is the fun and exciting portion of the presentation. All right, so open your brains. All right, so we've invested $279,000 in a master plan. We're engaged with Barry Dunn to perform that study. I hope you all had an opportunity to participate in it thus far. We've had a great response from the community as a whole, and so we're gathering all that data. What happens next is once we gather that data, at the same time we're assessing our facilities, we're assessing a lot of things, the market, the trends, all the things that's happening, and then all of that data along with the assessment and then what is being proposed to address all of the things that are coming out of the master plan is going to be packaged together in a presentation, that we'll have for future years, and within that presentation will be what spaces we look at, how we change those spaces, ballpark costs to do that, all that. It'll all be built into this master plan study, and it's exciting because I went back and I can't find where we've actually done a master plan that way. So this is the first time that we've actually done it in the way that we're doing, which is a grassroots way of doing it, and you could argue the right way of doing it. So we're excited about that. But we know, even though we don't know exactly at this point what's going to come out of the master plan exactly and what that looks like and how much it costs, we know there is going to be a cost, and we know that we need to start planning for those costs. And there's no time like the present. Can't do the past because the past is gone, but there's no time like the present, that's for sure. So that said, our members' needs and wants for the master plan study, what do we do to start funding for it, and how do we fund for it? You could argue that what you do is start funding it, and how you start funding it is up for debate. So I took the time to just kind of get the juices flowing, and I don't necessarily have an answer right now, but I want us to start talking about it because the board needs our input. I mean, the board needs our input, it needs the community's input, not just as to what they want, but how we fund it. And so I put some modeling together just to kind of show this committee and the community as a whole what that kind of looks like. What does it look like when we inject $6 million of master planning into our current modeling? Because you could argue that we model out 1.4 million in new capital a year. Well, we average about 300,000 to 400,000 a year, really, when we look at new capital. So you can argue that there's another million per year that really would be earmarked for new master plan items. So when you take the 6 million and you add the 1 million per year over the next 5 years, we have 10 million in this modeling look on for master plan. So 10 million over the next 5 years for master plan, plus an offset on those master plan costs for all the reserve study items, Bill, that are on there. So you're going to offset, for example, social hall ceiling. We do something with the social hall, there's 600,000 for a new ceiling in social hall. And that's going to offset any new capital for items. So there's also items within the reserve study that are going to contribute to that 10 million. So you could be looking 12, 13 million now in this modeling for master plan kind of new items. So it's exciting. And if we look at that though, what happens, it changes the perspective on things. Because if you go back to the 5-year modeling, we're talking about, there's 2 years where we hit about a $5 million deficit in terms of our cash inflows versus our cash outflows. Well, when you inject that additional master planning in there, you're looking at years of approximately 7 million in those years of outflows. Not to mention the additional outflows in the non-negative years. So it's a significant hit to our reserve fund, which, as you can see, is a significant hit to our fully funded balance percentage. So that's the health of a reserve fund. So we know that 40% per policy is where we need to be. In this model, where we spend the additional 6 million, we go down to 33% by 2031. And in the previous modeling, without that, we're still holding strong at 43%. So it's a 10 percentage point drop, 10-point drop in our reserve fund if we fund an additional 6 million in new capital. So in this what if strategy, we took the opportunity to come up with some scenarios on how we would start funding for this. And the good thing about funding for it in this budget is you get the time value of that money. You start right away. So you're starting right away, meaning it's less of an impact in the short term, but a greater impact in the long term. Now, when I say less of an impact in the short term, I'm talking about in the first 5 years. It's a bigger impact in year 1, but it's still still a smaller impact when you look at the 5-year outlook on it. So let's look at some options. Again, I want the community to understand that this is in addition to our budget, and this is if we were to spend or model out an additional 6 million in capital spend, what will we do? What are some options that we could have? We're not proposing this in the budget per se, but we are saying, let's start planning for it. So if we started planning for it, what would it look like? Well, if we said, okay, well, the $622, the $22 dues increase will cover our budget increase and keep us at 43% by year 2031. If we said, okay, we're going to start funding the reserve fund for master plan, we know that dues is the only guaranteed revenue that we get. It's, let's call it 98% guaranteed. We know that if we impact dues, we're definitely going to collect that additional revenue over the next 5 years. So if we said, okay, in addition to the $22, we're going to add another $10 on top of that. And we're going to use that $10, we're going to earmark it to go into our master plan. So we're going to increase our reserve fund allocation by an additional $10. And in addition to that, we know that people coming into this community, new people coming into this community, are really going to like that, whatever comes out of the master plan. Whatever it is. Say it's a library community center. Say it's a restaurant. Say it's whatever it is. We know that that's going to bolster our community. That's going to be a feather in our cap. And we know that they're going to pay that additional $200. So we say, okay, instead of the $5,600 APF at a $200 increase, we're going to increase our APF an additional $200 to $5,800. Okay? So say we did that, we increased it $10, we increased it $200 on the APF side. We held fast our modeling, which models out basically a 3 to 4% dues increase every year, a 3% APF increase every year, and a 3 to 4% operating expense increase every year. If we throw that in the model, what does that look like in terms of funding? And what happens to our FFB percent? Well, it goes from 33 to 37%. We're going to generate a $10 dues increase will give us $143,000 in the first year, and it'll give us $272,000 per year after that in additional dues. An additional $200 on the APF fee will give us an additional $220,000 per year. Okay, so that'll take us from 33% to 37%. If we'd said we were going to do that in terms of planning for master plan in this budget. Went a step further and said, how can we get at the 40% number? Well, to get at the 40% number, if we increase $20 in 2027, that would get us $286,000 in dues the first year, and an additional $544,000 per year after that. And if we said, okay, instead of a $200 additional increase in APFs, we went to $300, so an additional $100, that'll give us $330,000. That would get us to 40% by year 2030, 2031 in this model. And finally, there's been some discussion in the community about the irrigation projects. And what if we decided to extend irrigation projects? So the thing about extending irrigation projects is, yes, it does free up cash flow. So that negative amount that you go in those years for the irrigation projects, that extends that out. But what ends up happening is like you can see in this modeling, if I took the irrigation projects and extended them 1 year, each 1 year, you go down to 39% in year 2030 instead of year 29. And you go down to 34% in year 2032 instead of year 33% in year 2031. So yes, it does save you an FFB in the short term, but in the long term, it really doesn't save you. You really need to have inflows to cover. Now, if you extend them even further, yes, you extend it further, but they're still there. You still have to have funding to cover that. So, but it does make an impact in the FFB percent, and it does change the modeling in 1 year. You still drop below 40% in 2030, but it's a lot easier to make that 1% up.
Just to be clear, the third option that you showed here does not include any increase in dues or
No
APS.
increase. No increase. That's
So
keeping everything.
We could find a balance between
Yes, and it
these
could be
different models
could be. Yes,
to potentially make that happen.
absolutely. Could be a $100 APF and a $5 dues might get you there. I'd have to by year 2031 might get you there, but you still have to by 2032. You still have to take bigger measures, either in that first year or in subsequent years.
I'm going to let us get a couple of questions. Don, I saw your hand go up first.
So far, we're talking about the revenue and expenses. It seems that the amounts that we're expending aren't defined and kind of nebulous. Are we getting the cart ahead of the horse until we find out what we're going to spend the money on, how to finance it?
I personally don't think so, but that's up for the board to decide. But we know that we're going to have additional funding that's needed. We don't know what it is, but we know it is. So I would say not really. I mean, because we're not calling out. We're calling out dollars, but we're not calling out projects. I think that's a separate thing. But we know there's going to be funding that's needed.
Mickey?
Okay, a couple things here. So the two things that we're looking at right now are, in terms of funding, are an increase in dues and an increase in the APF. I also think that we have to think about increasing income from operations that could then be used to fund, right? Right now we put in 8%, right? So about 8% of our dues go into the reserve fund. But what struck me when I'm looking at our budget this year is I think that golf could make a bigger contribution. I completely, okay, a $3 increase per round, 320,000 rounds is $1 million. $3, okay? So I think that we have to look at that as well. And in terms of the nicer the facility warrants that kind of increase. I also think that we have to look at, when we did when we looked at the investment policy last year. So my question is, what are we using as what are we using as a net investment increase per year? Are we looking at 4%, 5%, 6%?
We're looking at, in terms of that question, 5.4%.
Okay.
So backed into the valuation change after the it's approximately $800,000 a year in investment income.
Yep.
So backed into that 5.4% with the additional valuation change. So that is modeled. It's not budgeted for 27, but
No.
it's modeled.
No, and it's
Going up.
we understand that we don't budget for it, but we do model
Yes.
for it,
Yep.
right? So we do model for it. I think that I also think that 5.4% is probably it's a little on the conservative side.
Middle of the
Probably.
middle.
Yeah, the middle of the middle, right? So it's the middle of the middle. It's probably a little bit conservative. We can't ever count our chickens before they hatch, but I do think that that could provide us with a little cushion at some point here. But yeah, I just really think that we have to look at not just dues increases and APF increases. I do think we have to look at operations and what could we use that to support with an upgraded facility. I think that upgraded facility warrants, I look across the board in this community and what we charge for things is really, really exceptionally reasonable, perhaps more reasonable. And, we can keep it at exceptionally reasonable if we want things to not improve. So I think that we could look at operations as a source of funds here. And I would definitely call out on the new capital projects that extra $1 million, that extra $1 million we don't spend. We should consider that as part of, we have it in now as a placeholder for what ifs, but that is really for improvements of this sort.
Absolutely. Yeah. That would,
Thank you, Mickey. I appreciate that input. Bill, you had your hand up?
Yes, what I would like to see is an extension of the projections out to 10 and 20 years because we're adding $10 million in assets, and so R&R and other things of that are going to be affected further down. And I'm wondering about the fully funded balance as you stretch it further and further down to ensure we're safe, years down the road with the additional assets.
yeah. Overall, we have positive cash flow after year 10 consistently because we don't have large irrigation projects. Now, if we have large new projects down the road after year 10, yeah. So it is modeled, and it's modeled in the form of the reserve fund allocation that's in the modeling at $1.5 million per year. That's from operations, and included in that number is basically 3 to 4% increase in revenue. So not only dues but golf rates, and 3 to 4% increase in expenses. So it is modeled out from an operations perspective, and then from a modeling perspective, we would have additions to our reserve study, but we're not really building anything new. It's generally in existing facilities that already have reserve study items. So in terms of modeling and the reserve study and looking at long-term, it's not a big mover on those new.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's part of what I was interested too. It's hard for us to, or at least me, to visualize some of these, which are repurposing of existing that already have some portion already in the reserve, thus not as much cost as something, outright.
Present some analysis on that.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Chris?
So it looks like we're trying to generate between $850,000 and $890,000 in that ballpark of additional revenue per year. I don't know, in order to keep 40% for 31, 32. I could rack my brains, I haven't come up with anything, but any thoughts or any ideas of additional sources of revenue? New additional sources of revenue?
Yeah, so it's a strategic priority of ours. So one of those additional sources of revenue is actually an expense offset in terms of credit card fees at $300,000 in this budget. There's also the potential for leasing rights for water rights with all the water savings that we generate from these irrigation projects and deturfing projects that happen at the golf courses. We've been here for 40 years. Our revenue structure generally has not changed. We provide a lot of services that are built into your dues. Charging for those services, we wouldn't look at that. We don't really necessarily look at that. We don't look at charging a fee necessarily for clubs, those types of things. It could be an opportunity down the road. It's not built into the modeling, but ultimately we've got to get to a reserve fund allocation number every year. We have to do that. We have to get to that number. How we get to that number operationally is budgeted a year ahead every year. So within that could be changes down the road. If we can generate some additional income from things like water rights, or we add additional services. It's hard to add services, though, in this type of business model that we're not already currently charging for.
Yeah, and I'd like to charge people that don't live here without using our our equipment, our assets. And then this money, would we keep track of master plan budget, a separate line item sort of out of the fully funded budget, so we kind of have an idea what we have to play with?
No. Yes and no. We would track what we put into that fund, but at the end of the day, that fund funds all capital improvements. So within that fund, it's all about that FFB percent. It really is. The nice thing is our bylaws and policies allow us to do something like this in a budgeting process, because we're modeling it and we're calling it out, and we know that we're going to have that spend down the road. But yeah,
and I just want to say, I think it's fantastic that we're thinking about this right now. We're talking about it. We just asked a whole bunch of people, and more are going to reply. What would you like to see? What would you like to have? And the last thing we want to do is tell people, yeah, we can't afford any of that.
Yeah, and it doesn't. This model is just a what if scenario. We could say, you know what, in the short term, we're not going to spend $6 million in additional new capital because we already have $5 million. But maybe we model $3 million, and how do we pay for it? So this is just to get the juices going and really get people thinking about it and give input to the board, which most of them are here today. So that's what this is all about.
Thank you, Cliff.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. We have Don has a question.
I have a rather radical idea for getting more revenue. We always seem to picking on golf and bowling. These two things already pay money in addition. But we have a lot of other things that go on in this organization where people don't pay a dang thing, whether it's pickleball, whether it's softball, whether it's the theater, whether it's lapidary, whatever it may be. We always maintain the facilities, but we don't charge any clubs for anything. And that, you know, that they're using it. But at the same time, we have to maintain it. So why can't they throw in an extra $1 a year?
Yeah, well, golf is subsidized overall. It is subsidized.
Yeah.
Again, what are we gonna do with those courses anyway, right? They have to be. So golf is
As I said, it was
subsidized.
rather radical.
Yes, yes. Well, you know, and that's the question. What's included, right?
What's included? Yeah.
What's included with dues? I put a slide up last year, and some of you may remember, about pools. And pools cost us more than golf courses at the end of the day in terms of subsidy. So yeah, it's, what do you include with the dues? I say you include what you've always included, because that's what people moved here and signed up for, you know, personally. But it'd be a board decision at the end of the day. You know, but you're right, golf has stepped up. They stepped up an additional amount to cover their credit card fees a few years ago. They have. On the other hand, golf pays $46 during peak prime rate. And that's $3 more than you'd spend at Sun City as a member, but it's probably $10 less than you'd spend at Grand.
Oh, it's far less
or
than
even-
Grand. Grand is somewhere anywhere from, for somebody like me going over there this time of year, it's $85.
I meant as a member at Grand,
Well,
the member rate.
even a member rate, $65, I believe.
Oh, okay, yeah. So,
Okay, one more question from the committee. Dave?
Yeah, I also have maybe a rather radical idea.
Oh, come on, you're gonna beat me?
In keeping with what Mickey said, with what Mickey said, I think we can generate perhaps some extra dollars from operations. And I know this is wild, but have we talked about, or where are we with serving liquor versus beer and wine?
Mhm.
yeah, that's a good question. So enhancing our service levels to generate additional revenue. So events is another one of those areas. Can we pay and charge tickets for events? Because we do charge tickets. So are there better acts, bigger acts, things like that? So those are all things that we look at every year. So one of the things that we are looking at, in line with the strategic priority, member experience and things like that, is we're going to look at if we look what it would take to convert one or two of our licenses to from a beer and wine to a liquor license. We are going to look at that and what the impact of that is. In terms of the risks and insurance and those types of things, there is an additional cost there because it's tied to sales.
Correct.
So if your sales go up, you're charging,
Right.
you know, more. Your revenue goes up, so therefore.
But you have a pretty good profit on liquor.
Yep. No, absolutely. That's I mean, that's really in line with what our goals are and what our mission and our strategy is how do we provide maybe better experiences, maybe charge a little bit more for them or charge something like that without charging people for things that they've come to expect to be part of their dues.
Thank you.
Rick?
Regarding each project, why can't we just look at each project individually and then increase the fees based upon that original project? Because then you've got cost and benefits. And you start doing something like this, it just keeps adding up and up and up and up and up. And you're really kind of delaying it and really diluting the impact of any new project that you're presenting to the community. So, I mean, yeah, it's a special assessment, but it's a one-time special assessment, and then you get the cost, and you get the benefit, and it's done. So
I was hesitating on giving the SA word, the dirty word, special assessment, but that is the benefit of doing it this way, because you can do it over time instead of having the short-term pain that you would have with a special assessment, or foregoing things that you know you're going to have to do later, like irrigation projects, things like that. But all things to be considered in the decision-making process. There is a benefit because you get to say what's the cost, what's the benefit versus cost. So it's a little more real time. I personally, and I don't have decision in the matter, but personally, I like the idea of using time to generate that, because we do have a robust reserve fund account, and we can weather early storms. I mean, you can see it in there. We can weather an additional 4 million and still be at 46% in year 29. And that's pretty impressive with nothing happening to dues. But to get to where you need to be 3 years later, to do that in 1 year is heavy lift. Yeah, brutal. And diminishes your chances of getting things done in this community,
Don, you had a
in my
question?
opinion.
Yeah, I wanted to support what Mickey said about operations. I'm a golfer. In fact, I looked at my last receipt and I played 74 rounds in Sun City West. These courses are really nice. There's a few improvements that could be made, but you could say that about any course in the world. These are really nice courses. Every other place I play, it's going to be, as Don said, $75, $80 to play. So bumping that up a little bit, I don't think we would affect the number of people coming substantially. The other thing, you go to a golf course and you get a pitcher of beer, it's $10. Go to Applebee's and get a glass of beer, it's $6.50. There's no, I think we could look at our pricing schedule.
Great suggestion. Okay, so I'm going to, we have 2 residents at the microphone that would like to speak up.
Jim Scott, 404-675. Excellent, excellent, excellent presentation. This is a shining example of your leadership, our general manager, and the folks, the administration team. This is something I've been losing sleep over, and our community is very excited about this, and there's a lot of possibility of what tomorrow is going to look like. And for you guys to be out front of this and start putting those creative juices out and how we're going to pay for it, kudos to you to start the conversation. My one concern, though, is options 1 and 2. Here in the past, we've been automatically doing a 3.7 whatever increase in our dues and APFs. And so you're showing on the options 1 and 2, so that's going to be piggybacked with an additional bump on operation and budgets as well. So it's not just a clean cut $10 or $20. It's going to be on top of whatever those years come out to be. Is that correct?
Yeah, the way it's modeled is that the 3 to 4% increase on the dues in the modeling would be on the 620, not 630. So the $10 would be carved out of that. But yes,
Yeah.
it's not, it wouldn't be the percentage on 630, it'd be the percentage on 620 with the $10 carve out. But yes, it is.
No, I understand. It's just that the member is going to see more than a $10 bump. It'll be whatever that whatever it is, 25, so maybe 28 or whatever. Or excuse me, 38.
I would anticipate at some point that would be factored into the budget and removed. So at some point in a future year, when you've funded master plan dollars to where you think that funding should be, that you would incorporate that $10 into the number and build a budget off of that and reduce the budget, the dues increase the following year. But yes.
I agree with Director Becknell. It's going to be a hybrid of everything, to the irrigation projects and APF and dues. I see that you did 1 year, so you've pushed the projects 1 year?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess my other thought is, what happens if we did the first 2, we slid them out a year, like on a 3-year, and then got a little aggressive on the other side? It's just an idea, but thank you.
Yeah, we can look at that. We had a request to have the modeling out a little longer just to take a look at that. So we can put that at, model that.
Good job.
Yeah.
Tip of the hat to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. We have another guest.
Heather Lanehart, 143213. First of all, thank you for the information. As a finance degree, it's nice to have it all out there and presented well. And I really appreciate the responsibility and protection of the residents' funds that I see from this committee, because option 1 and 2 just scared me. Some of us can handle that kind of a bump, but I know many residents who it's scary and it changes their life when dues just seem to keep going up and up and up. One question I had is I noticed that historically you've used 7% of the member dues to go towards the reserve fund, and now it's 8%. Is there a reason why? Is that temporary? Is it just going to keep going up and up? What's the decision on that?
So the past 2 years, as we've started allocating funds
Mm-hmm.
from the dues to go into the reserve fund, and they've been 7.5% for the last 2 years. I did bump it up to 8% this
Okay.
year, which generated about 90,000 additional going into the reserve fund from operations.
So is
And-
that just a decision that you get to
Yes,
make?
And that's approved in the budget process.
Okay.
So to be discussed.
Okay. And then, if you do, I know you say you anticipate the possible increase then being taken down. I think that needs to be set in stone if we do decide to do that. However, I think that there are many options we could do. I appreciate you protecting member funds, and thank you very much.
There'd be another benefit to a special assessment, because it's a one-time assessment to community members. So it's an option too. I mean, again, we're just trying to provide different scenarios, but appreciate the comments.
John Click?
I just want to follow up on what Don said here. About, there it's on. Whoa. The idea of, paying for some of the services we now get for free as an thank you. Is there a way we could have, when you find out what that $6 million is for, if you could have some kind of contribution from clubs to contribute to a project that they are benefiting from? I'm thinking about the art club that's offering to pay for their entire desire. Or I think I heard the tennis club in our charter clubs meeting. I heard our president say, well, we paid for that court. I heard that in a meeting. So I don't know how hard it is to get money from one organization to another, but could the clubs that are benefiting from some of these recommendations have an opportunity to contribute? Because I think you could get some serious contribution.
Well, good question. I think that the dynamics between every club is different. Some clubs collect higher member dues from their members and have larger memberships and have been around for a long period of time and have both developed those accounts, those bank accounts. I will say, generally speaking, of our 90-ish clubs, there's probably a very small group of them that could actually fund in a significant way. But that could offset some as well. So it's a good, as the president of the pickleball club, I like where you're going with that. But we don't want to. Well, the other side of it is when I talk
I have
about
my budget and finance hat on right now.
But we have to be careful because we don't want clubs to compromise their tax status at the same time. So we don't want them out generating revenue that's not in line with what their mission is, and nor do we want them out generating revenue from non-club members, because most of our clubs are 501c7s. So, but a lot of them have over time generated large bank accounts. I mean, you put 10 grand in a bank account for 40 years, 400 grand. So, there are some clubs that have large accounts that could potentially contribute. But that would probably all be considered with projects that might impact them.
All right, thank you. So I think as Cliff started out this presentation, this is our first draft. And the idea was to get it out in front of you, let you see what it looks like over the next 5 to 6 years. Think about some ideas. We heard some great ideas on potential revenue recognition that might help to offset. We've got some ideas on how we could move some projects forward and backward. And we also hear from the residents that a $10 or a $20 increase could be a significant event for a lot of our residents. So we'll keep all those things in mind, and we'll continue with this modeling process, because there's no reason to do a master plan if we don't execute the master plan. And so it really behooves us, so it's really our burden now that we've done the master plan, when we finally see it, that we need to make that come true. And how we make it come true will be up to us. But we need to start thinking about how we're going to start funding it even now, because in the next 2 years, we're going to need to start funding some part of that. So with that being said, I'm going to get committee comments, and I'll start down here with you, Don.
I'll pass.
Pass. Mickey?
Ditto.
Pass. Don? Pass. John? Pass. Chris? Pass.
Oh, no.
Dave? Oh,
I
no,
was
Chris.
saying I'm passing.
Okay.
Oh, you're not passing.
Chris.
I'm sorry to break the stream. I'm not passing. I've got a lot of different comments little notes that I've written down. Number one, I'm kind of doing them in order. Number one, I want to thank the staff for all the budget savings. There really are. It's amazing how you can have a budget of X amount of dollars, you get a project done, and not once or twice, but very often, our staff figures out a way of doing it and saving us some money. So I think that comes with dedication to our association, and I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate it to begin with. Number two, there is a lot of information in today's package, a ton of information. And we have people in the audience today, but go home and tell everybody to click online. It's easy to find, and look through this stuff, because, you know, these are the reasonings for some of the changes we may be doing in the future. And now's the time to know about it and come and voice your opinion. The third and final item that I have, when Don mentioned something about clubs being charged a fee, I originally cringed. And then I thought about, you know, when we make improvements to the community, everyone in the community, whether you're a golfer or not, if our golf courses are nicer, you receive that benefit. Whether you quilt or not, the fact that we have quilting club, you receive that benefit. So it's nice that it can be spread around to the entire community, because everybody receives from the asset that we're improving. But then I thought a little bit more about what Don was saying, and I don't know if this is legal tax-wise or not, but it seems like we could put on, and people are going to shoot me for this, but we could put on a charter club. You know, if you're going to have a charter club, there's a $50 fee for the charter club, and then $1 per person or something like that. And it doesn't add up to a ton of money, but it adds up to a little bit of money. And as a president of a club, I feel we could probably absorb that. I don't know if all the clubs could, or if it's even a good idea. But originally, Don, when you said that, I said, no way. And then I thought about it. It's kind of a little share, a way of the people that use the amenities the most to pick up a little bit of that load, and not just the golfers or just the bowlers or something like that.
Thank you, Chris. Dave?
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank all the department managers and staff that are all here in support of this meeting. I really appreciate all your input into the budget, because I know Cliff has met with you and has talked with you, and I appreciate your input. And I really appreciate Cliff's input and his hard work. He's worked very hard at this. It's very understandable and readable and very clear, so I appreciate that. Number two, I think not just for us as a committee, but for all owner members, everybody has to remember that their all consumers of capital, right? We all consume capital every time we go to the golf course, every time we go to the fitness center, et cetera. So we're all responsible to keep up that capital. And that includes master plan items. So I just want everybody to make sure they think about and understand that we're all consumers, and it's all our responsibility to replace and improve.
Thank you. David?
Just a few things. First of all, Cliff and your team, this is a lot of work in this package. Congratulations.
Yes.
And for the management and all the things you do every day, thank you very much, I think, on behalf of all the members. Second of all, I just want to comment from the art event that happened this weekend. There's a lot of work that goes in that, and it was a real showcase for the whole community, because there are a lot of people from outside the community. So we talk about PR, that's a PR thing, and it really was demonstrated how well we can do things. So congratulations to all those people who are involved in that. Third thing is, I just wanted to say, and I didn't talk into some of the new ideas, but this is really about sustainability. And there are different means to do sustainability. And we have to look at what other organizations do to ensure that there's sustainability. And I think we can look at that as a possible way to enhance the master plan.
Thank you. Rick?
I just want to reiterate what Dave said, and I appreciate Cliff, your staff, and the whole operating committee of this organization. You do a great job.
Bill?
I just wanted to raise one issue, and that's related to golf and using that as the source. I think we identified the users went from 8,000 to 7,000. 77, so it's decreasing, and I've said once before that golf could go back to pre-COVID days unless something is different. COVID raised golf as the only thing you could do outside, and so golf increased. And this is not the only course that's seeing some sliding already. So unless we really make things good, I play a variety of courses throughout the winter, through different leagues and stuff like that. And I'm not a golfer who hits the fairway 50% of the time. So I would say our course is not as good as some when you don't hit the fairway. I've talked to Todd about that. I've talked to Pat a few times about that too, but I think it does really need some attention. I think with our new turf, that'll make some change. But in order to keep that as a significant revenue source, it will need our constant attention, I think.
Thank you. I echo the comments of the committee, thanking all the staff for all the hard work they've done in helping you to build this. And I want to thank you for spending 2 hours of the microphone talking debits and credits and pluses and minuses for us. So I see we also have someone at the mic. Christine?
Thank you very much, Director Becknell. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to add a sort of thanks in advance to this committee. You have many members of the board are here in person, and I'm sure everybody else is going to be online. We have 3.5 months. It's going to go like that in terms of analyzing all these options. But two quick things. The Budget and Finance Committee, you guys are representing the community, if you will. Lots of folks in the committee. We had some folks in the audience too with the expertise, but we're counting on you to be thinking through all this stuff. So thank you in advance for continuing to bring those ideas forward to the board. We do have a lot of work ahead of us. So two quick things. The actual operating budget, let's not lose the thread of the fact that, again, the team's done a great job of presenting a very moderate increase, something that the $22 increase just to keep things going. So I didn't want to lose that thread, but now we have to, again, figure out how are we going to pay for the future. Lots of analysis ahead of us. Lots of committees will be contributing. We have our, sports PAV, golf committees will be looking at these revenue options as well. But again, just wanted to thank you guys in advance for taking the time to be on the committee, analyzing these options. We're all going to be working together to come up with a recommendation to the governing board, and the governing board will make the decision in the end. So thanks in advance for all the hard work.
Thank you, President Novello. The next Budget and Finance Committee meeting will be March the 3rd. And I will adjourn this meeting now as of 11:19. Thank you.